Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farms, and today we're going to try out some new attachments on the Baumalight mini skid steer. So I've known this machine was coming for a little while, but it only came with a bucket. And a bucket's a handy tool for a mini skid steer, but it's definitely not going to do everything I need to do. And then one day it hit me that I already have an attachment system that will work on this that will let me use a wide range of attachments actually. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So this is a mini skid steer quick attach from Artillian. And if you have been following my channel, you know that I have a bunch of attachments from Artillian. But they just recently came out with an adapter that lets you use those same attachments with a mini skid steer. And this is a very new thing for them. They haven't really sold many of them yet. So I'll be kind of the first guinea pig to see how well their attachments work on a mini skid steer. So what we have here, if you're not familiar, is a frame that you can attach different things to. But before we attach anything to it, we have a receiver right here. So we could put something like a recovery solution that goes into a receiver into this opening here and use it for pulling. You could put an actual receiver in it and use it for moving trailers. I have a receiver mount winch that I could put in here. If the machine was stuck, I could actually use a winch to help pull the machine out. And then you've got chain hooks right here. So if we don't want any extra weight, because the mini skid steer has a somewhat limited lift capacity, if we wanted to lift a maximum amount, we could lift it with chains in these built-in chain slots and have the weight all the way back here. So just by itself, we've already got some versatility with this Artillian frame. I was about to move on, but I forgot something else I have that's receiver mount. I have a spreader that I use for spreading ice melt and grass seed and different things. It hooks up to your battery and mounts in a receiver. So I could use a spreader on the front of this, and I probably will once the weather turns and we have some snow and ice. Since this is a new product for Artillian, they hadn't tested it on every brand of mini skid steer. And for mine, I had to cut out a couple notches to get it to drop down in far enough. I've sent all this information to Artillian, and if you were to order one of these for your mini skid steer, I'm sure they'll have this little issue fixed. But anyway, that's enough talking. Let's put the pallet forks on it and see what this thing can lift. I would say for a lot of people, the primary use for one of these mini skid steers is residential landscaping or tree service, that sort of thing. But for me, one main purpose is going to be as a firewood machine. So that means I need it to be able to lift these totes. And these totes weigh about 1,500 pounds the way they set. And according to the operating capacity, the machine ratings, I shouldn't be able to lift this. But I'm going to try it anyway. Let's see what happens. So one thing you may not have been able to tell about the way it handled those totes is that I was not running out of power to lift the tote. I was easing into that handle and I would stop when I felt the machine starting to tip. The hydraulics could have continued to lift it, there's just not enough counterbalance. I've already sent an email to Baumalight and told them I need the weight kit. There is a weight kit that adds like 310 pounds to right in between the tracks here by the rear sprocket. And I think adding that weight kit will solve my problem, and I'll be able to move those totes, which was one of my main tasks I want to do with this machine. So, we've knocked out pallet forks. We know I can use a spreader, a receiver, chains, pallet forks. Let's move to something a little more interesting, which is a front hoe bucket. If I haven't shown you before how this system works, you set these notches down into these notches to get the attachment on. Then you lift it up and slide it and lift it off of those notches. Now the bottom's locked in, top's locked in. You put these keepers through holes in the back to keep it from sliding side to side. And that's how you change attachments on this system. All right, so what do we have here, and why do I want one on the front of my mini skid steer? This is what Artillian calls the front hoe. I typically call it a stump bucket because most of the time I have used it for removing stumps, or not necessarily stumps, but like saplings and stuff like that. It's like a backhoe bucket on your loader, or on your boom in this case. It's also got replaceable front teeth. There are several different teeth designs you can put on the front of this. It's got a serrated cutting edge. The reason they call it a front hoe is it's a poor man's replacement for a backhoe. Whereas a backhoe is a $5,000 to $10,000 attachment for a tractor, you can put this on the front of your tractor. It's like having a backhoe bucket. It's not as good really as a backhoe, but when you look at a couple $100 versus, you know, several thousand, it's a decent alternative. So where I think this is going to be a lot better on the mini skid steer is visibility. When I use this on my tractor, my specific tractor, I can't see the front of this, and I'm kind of fumbling in the dark, if you will. With the mini skid steer, I'll be able to see it. Especially, I have the long one up there. This is, I believe, the 12-inch, and they've got like a 24-inch or something that's a lot longer. But I thought we'd just start with this one. But I'm going to be able to see the front of it and tell exactly what I'm doing. So let's do a little bit of digging, dig a little short trench, not try to make too big of a mess, and then maybe go find a couple saplings to pull out. So that was interesting. I'm gonna say I've never really used this that way, but they show it being used that way on the website. I thought I'd give it a try. I was able to pull out some of these huge rocks. I mean, big rocks. And that's where I've actually used this attachment on my property. To dig out individual rocks that were sticking up out of the ground. Does a good job for that. And then the saplings. I made a trench here that's, I don't know, 12 to 18 inches deep. The next piece of equipment that fits on this same frame is the Iron Fist Grapple, and the regular Grapple for that matter. But we're going to use the Iron Fist, and most of you have probably seen that, but if not, I'll put a couple clips of the tractor using the full setup. It would be possible for me to use all three of these pieces, but I'm not going to. The primary reason is, this is a heavy grapple, and this machine has limited lift capacity. Just to be reasonable about it, we're talking it can lift maybe 1,500 pounds, but the safe amount for you to drive around with is closer to 1,000. This grapple, the way it sits, weighs like 300 pounds. No reason to put that much weight on it. So I'm going to take one clamp off of this and use it as a single grapple. And I like the idea of the single grapple better anyway, because I'm going to use this for firewood. And with a single grapple, you can cut all the way down to the last round, lift your log up in the air and just slice down it. With the wider grapple, it's harder to do that. I did have to take the fittings off of that grapple and get some of these flat-faced skid steer couplers and adapt it down. Everything you just watched me do was the first time I'd ever tried that job with that machine. So there's always a little bit of a learning curve, but there was only one thing that's actually a problem that has to be figured out. And that is the grapple. It opens and closes way too fast. It's slamming hard enough that eventually you'd probably tear the grapple up. So this grapple is primarily designed to be used on a tractor. This mini skid steer has a much higher flow rate. It's possible that there's an adjustment on the mini skid steer. I'll have to check with the manufacturer and read the owner's manual, see what I can find out. It's also possible that maybe I need to put some orifices in there for a flow reduction to slow that down. I don't really know yet. I'm sure it's going to work. I just have to do a little bit of figuring. So I'm really glad that I had these Artillian attachments that have the versatility to be used on different types of machines. It's saving me from buying more attachments right now. So if you guys have a suggestion on the open and close on the Grapple or anything else you saw today, let me know. But I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.